Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2020 Agency Administrator Refresher Webinar. We're glad you all could make it. This webinar is brought to you today by the Wildland Fire Management Research, Development, and Applications Program, otherwise known as the Wildland Fire Management RD&A. This program sponsors and guides the development and application of wildland scientific knowledge, develops decision support tools, and provides science application services to the interagency wildland fire community. We have 6 distinguished speakers today, covering a range of preparedness topics to include COVID-19 and associated response. With the COVID-19 issues merging with wildland fire for this year, how we respond to and manage wildland fire has become increasingly more complex. We'll tackle some of that complexity in today's webinar. Our speakers today are Jill Reinarz, Incident Commander for Boise NEMO, Beth Lund, Assistant Director of Operations for the U.S. Forest Service Fire and Aviation Management out of Boise, Idaho, Jane Darnell, Deputy Regional Forester, U.S. Forest Service, Northern Rockies, Region 1, Kim Van Helemryck, Operations Program Lead in the Office of Wildland Fire for the Department of the Interior, Dan Dallas, Forest Supervisor for the Rio Grande National Forest, Rocky Mountain Region 2, and Morgan Pence, WFDSS Business Lead for the Wildland Fire Management RD&A. I'm Diane Rao, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Morgan Pence and Tammy Parkinson will provide webinar support and moderate the question and answer session at the end. Some basic information before we get started. Speakers need to identify themselves prior to speaking. When speaking, speak directly into the microphone and try not to speak over others. Attendees are muted. If you want to ask a question during the question and answer session at the end of the webinar, raise your hand to be unmuted, or you can post your question in the question chat box. To minimize screen delays and maximize bandwidth, close any extra browser windows that you might have open. Next, I'll provide a brief GoToWebinar tutorial. Click the raise hand icon if you want to ask a question during the question and answer session. You may notice an audio pin. Your audio pin is unique to you, so please enter it so you can connect to the webinar. If you have a question, type it in the question chat box. Although we will not be answering questions until the end of the webinar, post your questions as they come up so you don't inadvertently forget them. If time does not allow us to answer all questions, we'll get back to you via email with an answer. You'll also notice 2 reference handouts available for download near the bottom of the GoToWebinar panel. Download these now if you choose, or you can wait to download from the RD&A website when the recording becomes available. The webinar is scheduled to be 1 hour long. Our first speakers today are Jill Reinarz and Beth Lund. Jill Reinarz is currently the Incident Commander of the Boise NEMO team and serves as the Coordinator/Liaison for the National Multi-Agency Coordination Group to the Area Command Teams. Beth Lund's fire career spans 45 years and includes serving as a Type 1 Incident Commander. Beth is currently the Assistant Director for Operations for the U.S. Forest Service Fire and Aviation Management out of Boise, Idaho. Thanks for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Okay, so is everybody else getting?
Yeah, can everyone please mute your phone if you're not presenting? Thank you.
I did mute that.
Okay, good morning. This is Joe Reinarz. As was noted, that I'm working with Beth Lund, and we're working with the Area Command teams and the National Multi-Agency Coordination Group, or NMAC as it's known. And what NMAC did on March 17th was they activated 3 Area Command teams in a virtual state with the delegation of authority from NMAC to help the geographic areas develop a wildland fire response plans, considering the effects of COVID-19 on our response for fire this year. And through discussions with NMAC, what the area command teams are looking at is a time period from mobilization through demobilization. So when somebody gets called to go to a fire or other incident until they are back in their home base, that's the time period they're looking at. So let's see, there was 3 area command teams, and they were divided. Each of them had separate geographic areas to look at. ACT-1, Stutler, had Rocky Mountain, Pacific Northwest, and Alaska. And as you can see, ACT-3 Jalbert has the Southwest, Northern California, and Southern California. Tim Sexton, ACT-2, had Southeastern, Great Basin, and the Northern Rockies. And then to cover the eastern area, they had the Silver team from eastern area under Goldman to come in and work on that particular plan. And he's working directly for Tim Sexton. But in this case, he was working as another area command team, and it worked out very well. Okay, and these teams, they came in on the 17th of March and were tasked with coordinating with several different teams. What we wanted to do is produce a product that did not conflict with other products that are out there, took into effect a whole bunch of different groups that were working on similar or the same problems, to keep our firefighters safe, to give agency administrators some best management practices, and our firefighters some best management practices when they're out in the field, as well as NMAC and all the different MACs and geographic areas within the United States. And if we can switch to the next slide. Okay, so some of these groups, it's not limited to just this group, these groups. It's the Fire Management Board, and then Jane Darnell will talk a little bit more, or quite a bit more, about enterprise risk management and the geographic area risk management. Those groups. So all the different agencies were involved in this. And then there is an emergency medical committee set up, and those are all our agency doctors, and they've included epidemiologists and several other folks. And then we brought in MTDC as their researchers, and they've been involved in a lot of things, including food and how we're gonna manage camps and those things. And then there has been a lot of interaction with all the federal, state, and local health people, including CDC in this case. We're following a lot of CDC guidelines. And then the other piece of it, they were coordinating a lot with the coordinating group chairs and all those subcommittees that have fire responsibility duties, the operations groups and fire business groups and all those. And what we're looking at is best management practices in all aspects of fire response, from the mobilization through the demobilization. So currently the status is I did this PowerPoint a couple days ago. Right now the Eastern area has their final copy of their work or their response plan, and Rocky Mountain is getting theirs today. The Southeast and the Southwest, they're still in process of getting the final back to the geographic area. And then the next one is what's in process right now. ACT-1 has Pacific Northwest and Alaska in process, as ACT-2 is working on Great Basin, and they're starting to outreach to Northern Rockies. And the ACT-3 is working with Southern and Northern California geographic areas at the same time, so they're working on that. And the outlook on this is probably possibly up to 2 weeks more, somewhere around the 22nd to 24th. They ought to all be wrapped up and done. We're working on where that's going to stay and house it, because these are living documents. These documents are going to be handed back to the geographic areas with all of the information and best management practices that are in it. And I'll explain a little bit in just a second on what the plans look like and what they're meant to do. But that'll be handed back to the geographic areas, and then the geographic areas will be responsible for managing the monitoring, updating, and consistency across plans with the other geographic areas throughout the rest of this year and however long they're needed. So there's a couple things about it. The main body of the document is more strategic in nature. And what that means is that that's the piece of this document that's going to be centered around MAC groups, coordinating groups, and all that kind of stuff. It's more specific to the strategic response to wildland fire. And then the appendices, those are all the best management practices for the different responders. I.e., there's one for crews, there's one for rolling stock, which is our engines and dozers, and the like. And then there's one in there specifically for agency administrators, and there's another in there specifically for the fire managers on the unit level of the organization. So those best management practices, this is not direction. This is the best ideas we have now for how to manage it, considering all these different groups that are working on these problems. And a lot of it is how we take care of the firefighter, how we prevent exposure, and a fair amount of what we do if we do have an exposure, what those kind of best management practices as they come along there. So with that, it's now more than ever, we as agencies need to be cooperating. We're going to probably see a fair amount of shortage before we even get started in our fire season this year of resources to put on fires. So we're going to be looking at probably having to modify our response. Definitely how we're going to have to modify our response. We're going to have a major change in our fire culture in how we support our firefighters in the field. And that would be, you probably won't see large camps this year, and you'll probably see more of a coyote tactic, and that means people are going to be dispersed out along on the fire line using the module as one. That means the module itself is like one entity. We don't want a whole lot of cross between those modules. There's going to have to be some. We're going to use a lot of technology, and that's what these plans are for. And as a close, you folks as agency administrators who give the direction to the incident management teams, that includes 3, 4, 5, 1, and 2s. You guys set those objectives and give the intent. So it's going to be important that you look at these, and if you can support them, you support them, and talk to our leaderships and talk about how we can manage this in a safe and efficient management style, not only for our firefighters, but for those communities that we're going to be affected or could affect our firefighters with the transmission of COVID-19. With that, I will pass the baton. Beth, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Can you guys hear me all right?
We got you.
Okay, great. I just had a couple more things to add. Of course, I'm the NMAC member that's been working with Joe, or liaising with Joe relative to what's going on with the area command teams. I just also wanted to add in that we are, my staff is working with NTDP in Missoula. There's a team there helping us. We're going to try to modify our catering model and see what other kinds of options we can have. Of course, being mindful of the, COVID and all the requirements that go with that, as far as, social distancing and things like that. So we might see quite a different model as far as feeding firefighters, and that'll go for the shower operation as well. And we also anticipate probably some sort of modified, fire camp situation, but that all hasn't, been totally vetted yet. And then lastly, we are also, NMAC's going to be putting forth an IMT survey, just going to the ICs right now to try to check on availability in each geographic area. And primarily what we're going to do, type 1, 2, and 3, also area command and NEMO. And we want to get some idea of buying teams too, but we might have to craft a different survey for that one. But just a couple updates there on the operations side of things. That's all I had. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, both Joe and Beth. Our second speaker today is Jane Darnell. Jane is currently the Deputy Regional Forester for the Northern Region and has been in that position since February of 2015. Her career spans 30 years across the interior West in range, land, and as a line officer. Thanks for joining us, Jane.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody for being on this call and for the opportunity to engage in this interagency setting. I want to start with just a reflection of whatever your contribution to your agency is or to the wildland fire system. I just want to thank you, and thank you for supporting this refresher. As Joe and Beth described, these are extraordinary times. COVID-19 is changing how we do business in fire response. Our overarching objective this year is to minimize COVID-19 exposure, transmission, smoke exposure to fire and communities. And we will not be successful meeting that objective with our normal business models of sharing resources and having response protocols that require close contact between people. Local resources may be relied on almost exclusively, though Joe and Beth certainly described strong efforts that are being made to support when we may need to bring people together. Scenario planning with your partners. We are routinely involved in this. It's more important than ever this year. And I encourage you to be courageous and explore worst case scenarios during those conversations with your partners. I think that kind of practiced effort help us to be better decision makers in the moment. And the system depends on us being engaged and skilled in decision making. And now more than ever, I know we all want to be at our best. The role of the agency administrator is critical. The fire system is delegated responsibilities from the agency administrators, and AAs have a responsibility to be engaged before, during, and after events with their fire staff and advisors to ensure that your intent is understood and the system responds to that intent appropriately over time. We're fortunate to have had a lot of work going on that helps us be well positioned to take on the challenge that we face, especially this year. Over the years, and as I reflect on my career, there weren't necessarily a lot of resources helping agency administrators know what was expected of their decision making or how to build their skills. Over the last several years, a lot of that has changed. And for the Forest Service in particular, through our National Line Officer team, we've been providing oversight of our Agency Administrator Certification Program. It's a small group of folks doing some incredibly heavy lifting to coordinate with national training officers and really explore ordering and documentation of training and certification and updating the related direction in Red Book and other reference materials to make the program a success and to help agency administrators know what's expected of them and how to build those skills and get those experiences. Agency administrators have to be prepared to make critical and informed fire management decisions related to their span of authority. Experience directly is invaluable, but there's also a lot of remote experience, classroom training when we can do it, but we're leveraging platforms just like this more and more to help share and build the knowledge, skills, and abilities that line officers need to be and succeed in their role as agency administrators for wildfire incidents as well as prescribed fire treatments. I want to pause on the prescribed fire treatments. This year across much of the National Forest System, if not all, we have been in a pause in that critical work. And that's been informed through some risk assessment and very careful decision making back to that overarching objective and determining right now we were not confident that we could deliver that program and minimize the exposure for our firefighters and communities. Updates to our certification program, including certification for prescribed fire and the role of agency administrator in that program, are found. We have task book and red book updates, pathways charts, frequently asked questions, and this is all hosted on our agency administrator toolbox. And there's going to be a summary slide at the end of the presentation pointing you to the location of all of these references. I want to take a minute and link us back to the cohesive strategy as well as we look at wildfire response for this year and beyond. Because I think our experiences this year, one, COVID-19 will continue to impact our work, I believe, in some waves as the virus runs its course until something like a vaccine changes those conditions. We should anticipate intermittent disruptions related to COVID. What that looks like exactly, we don't know. But we need to be sure to work closely with our partners and stakeholders in addition to our health, public health officials and partners in the medical community as we prepare and learn from this year. Our work is always cross-boundary, and it certainly is this year. It's a great year to innovate and share learning. We have a tremendous set of tools and analytics that are available to help support your decision making. WFDSS is the primary platform for that, and the provides for the documentation of our decisions. There are additional analytic support and risk management assistance that's available to you and will be discussed later in the presentation. Those efforts can provide augmented analytics and be especially responsive to the questions that you face when you're dealing with an incident directly. That's where I'm going to reiterate the strength of scenario planning, get you thinking forward so you can ask those good questions. And our analytic core, I'll say, the folks working in the analytic front are anxious to know what those questions are and see how they can leverage the analytics and technical capacity we have and that we are growing in order to help answer and support the decisions that agency administrators are faced with. So I encourage us to build our network. Virtual relationship building, but network is also a technological term. And so building a relationship with the technology, the support systems, and the people behind it in whatever environment, in person or virtual, critically important now and beyond. And I want to close with that reminder for all of us to take care of yourself, your folks, your community, and be confident. We are rising to this challenge, even when we don't know all the answers. And I know there's a lot of frustrations around just sometimes it would be so much easier if we just had clear direction. Well, there is clear direction. We will be engaging this. We must be conscientious about minimizing the transmission of this virus, and especially in our fire response systems. So in your efforts, taking care of your people, providing clear leaders' intent around wildfire response and COVID, coordinating with people we might not usually coordinate with, again, your medical community. Don't be afraid to ask for help or guidance. We're all working through this together. It's a rapidly changing environment. Your innovation and response can help your neighbor. So even though we are isolating, we're not alone. So I encourage you to stay connected. And again, I really thank you for participating in this forum and for everyone else behind the scenes who support it and can make it interactive as it is. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jane. Kim Van Helemryck is our next speaker. Kim started her career as a seasonal employee with U.S. Forest Service in 1987 and currently works as the Operations Program Lead in the Office of Wildland Fire for the Department of the Interior. Thanks for joining us today, Kim. Take it away.
All right, thank you. Hello, I'm here to give you guys a quick overview of the 2018 Omnibus and the Dingle Act. As many of you know, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2018, or sometimes we call it the 2018 Omnibus, provided a new funding structure to pay for wildfires from fiscal year 2020 through fiscal year 2027. Beginning this fiscal year, $2.25 billion of new budget authorities is available to the Department of the Interior and the Forest Service for use after normal suppression appropriations are expended. The budget authority increases by $100 million each year, ending at $2.95 billion by fiscal year 2027. The 2018 Omnibus specified that the Secretaries of Agriculture and Interior are to submit an annual report on multiple specific objectives related to wildfire suppression, prevention, and spending, and is due to Congress 90 days after the fiscal year ends. This national or departmental annual report will answer questions required in the 2018 Omnibus and will include information gathered from individual fire reviews that are also required as part of the Omnibus bill. The DOI and the Forest Service will conduct similar but separate individual fire reviews and annual reports. For the Forest Service, the individual fire reviews will be conducted on large fires that exceed 100,000 acres and $50 million. DOI reviews will be conducted on large fires where DOI bureaus or tribes have management responsibilities for suppression obligations and outlays greater than 15 million, and where 50% or more of the acres burned occurred on DOI or tribal lands. For the DOI, this information is found in Policy Memorandum 2016-13, and it's also in the process of being updated to reflect the 2018 Omnibus requirements. In addition to that criteria for review, a fire may also be selected for review when it meets or expected to meet one or more of the following criteria: that there were significant political, social, or policy issues, or there were significant and complicated cost-sharing or multi-jurisdictional issues, or the affected agency or the agency administrator request a review. The 2018 Omnibus requires the annual report done at the departmental or national level to be made available to Congress and the public. And again, I just want to stress that this will be a combined report at the national or department level and not the individual fire reviews that are going to be being done. Next slide, please. So a little bit on the Dingell Act. The Dingell Act is formerly known as the John D. Dingell Jr. Conservation Management and Recreation Act, and it was signed into law on March 12, 2019, and it sets forth provisions consolidating several natural resource and public land management bills into a single piece of legislation, including provisions related to wildland fire. Section 1114 addresses wildland fire specifically, and it promotes some technological innovations and safety-related measures for the benefit of the firefighters as well as the public. This section specifically addressed 7 different project areas, many of which the Department of Interior and Forest Service are already working on. They include, the first one is establishment of an unmanned aerial system program, or a UAS program. 2, to develop and operate a location system for wildland firefighters. 3, developing a wildfire decision support tool to track and monitor decisions on incidents. 4, establishing an interagency wildland fire air quality response program to provide for the assignment of at least one air resource advisor to a type 1 or type 2 incident managing a federal wildfire. 5 is to update death and injury data collection requirements in the National Fire Incident Reporting System to ensure that information is categorized by the type of fire and that the statistics include deaths and injuries associated with pack tests, vehicle accidents, and aircraft crashes. 6, establishing and maintaining an erosion database to recommend emergency stabilization treatments or modifications to drainage structures to protect resources and values at risk following a wildfire. And 7, establishing and maintaining a system that predicts the location of future wildfires in fire-prone areas of the United States. Next slide. So a few highlights of what you might be able to expect from the Dingell Act this fire season. The first one I'm going to talk about is the location system. And an implementation team has been chartered by the Fire Management Board. The team has established a group of operations specialists that are developing requirements for the integration of tracking technology in wildfire operations. In addition to this, the fire and aviation dispatch community has provided requirements for real-time tracking that will be included in the next generation of the CAD system, or the computer automated dispatch system. So 3 pilots have been identified for evaluation this fire season. All 3 pilots will be tested against common evaluation criteria with definitive start and stop dates. We should note that that COVID-19 response may be changing the scope of the pilots due to the time restraints and other concerns put out by the CDC. Pilot 1 is going to focus on integration with existing local unit operations and system. For example, CAL FIRE has systems that they're already using. And this pilot will focus on the interoperability of different devices and identifying the type of data collected and how that data is exported and displayed. Pilot 2 is going to focus on a unit or area of operation that has no current resource tracking infrastructure, testing multiple devices in a variety of response scenarios, including initial attack, prescribed fire, and extended attack. And pilot 3 is going to focus on the deployment of resource tracking capabilities on a type 1 incident, providing a technical team to assist in the setup, data collection, and display capabilities along the IMT. The next update is for the UAS program. The Forest Service and the Department of the Interior Office of Aviation Services signed an agreement that is valid until September 30th of 2024. The agreement was set up to establish and ensure interagency coordination and cooperation in order to ensure that the UAS program is effective and efficient. The new partnership will coordinate agencies to be active participants in the development and utilization of technology, the training, support, and the operations for wildland fire management. Next one I want to give a little update on is the Wildland Fire Air Quality Response Program, and this has been out there for a little while, and some of you may have already experienced some of this. The Wildland Fire Air Quality Response Program was created to directly assess, communicate, and address risk posed by wildland fire smoke to the public as well as fire personnel. The program depends on 4 primary components, which include a specially trained personnel called Air Resource Advisors. They have air quality monitoring, smoke concentration and dispersion modeling, and coordination cooperation with agency partners. Air Resources Advisors are identified and generally are trained and available for deployment to Type 1 and some Type 2 incidents. More information can be found at www.wildlandfiresmoke, all one word, .net. Next one is the Firefighters Injuries Database. The Forest Service has determined that their current e-safety program will meet the reporting requirements of the Dingle Act with minor enhancements. For DOI, the Office of Safety and Health is reviewing the Safety Management Information System for enhancements that would maximize utility within wildland fire and meet the reporting requirements. And the last one I'm going to talk about here is the Rapid Response Erosion Database. And it's an operational program hosted by the Michigan Tech University. The Forest Service FAM Capabilities Development and Integration Team is working with the Forest Service Rocky Mountain Research Station to integrate the Rapid Response Erosion Database to be co-located with the Watershed Erosion Prediction Project. This will allow the data sharing between the systems, resulting in spatial models and maps, providing the recommendations for emergency stabilization treatments and data sets to bear teams for further utilization. Thank you.
Dan Dallas is our next speaker. Dan is the Forest Supervisor on the Rio Grande National Forest, Incident Commander for the Rocky Mountain Type 1 Incident Management Team, and the Enterprise Risk Management Line Officer Lead for the Fire Risk Management Assistance Cadre. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
And thank you. And hey, thanks for the Wildland Fire RD&A for putting this on. Little did you know that you're going to have a hot topics and you had to take a complete 90 degrees to put it back together, and appreciate the opportunity here. So while I got 551 agency administrators on the line here, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the risk management assistance, and particularly that's available for agency administrators. Here I've got a decision assistance, advanced analytics, and risk-informed decision support. But to take advantage of a very short window here, I'm going to narrow it way down. So next slide, please. So this is dated 2019, and there's probably a whole bunch more, probably another half page of things that have been basically invented in the last few years. But these are the products that are available from the risk management assistance cadre and on the website. And what I decided I was going to do, because to explain all this would basically take hours to comprehensively explain all this. But what I was going to do is imagine myself as you folks, which actually happened late last fall. We had a fire called the Decker Fire, where we used these, well, almost all of these products, but I'm gonna put myself in your shoes and pretend I had a fire real quick. And so there's 4 main ones that I call them my big 4. So if you could, yeah, there you go. Thank you. So to use my experience here, I had a lightning strike on the Decker Fire. It started the Decker Fire about midnight. by 10 o'clock the next morning, I'd ordered these 4 things. And by about 2 o'clock, I had them, and we got together with our agency administrators and our partners and made some decisions on how we're going to manage the fire. The website's available there. We can probably send it out later too, but that's the website where all this stuff is available. So these 4 would be the ones, if I were you and you had a fire, these are the 4 that I would order immediately. So next page, next slide, please. So I call these the twins. One's the good twin and one's, in fire suppression terms, one's the good twin, one's the bad twin, if you will. One's called the potential control locations and the other is called suppression difficulty index. And one of the things that the analysts do to make all of our lives easier as an agency administrator is the colors on all maps go from warm to hot. And what I mean by that is the warm colors, blue, green, yellow, those are generally, a good way to think of it is those are good. And then going to the mid yellows, to the orange, to the browns, to the red, they're bad. And so what you're looking at here is, I can tell by looking, this is this was a fire up in Montana because I can see the lakes there, but the bottom line is it shows clearly on a map where it's easy to put in control features and where it's difficult to put in control features. Next slide, please. The other thing that I immediately want to know is how long it's going to take from the fire line to get somebody to medical treatment if they're hurt on the fire line. And so that's the one that you see on the left, that's the evacuation time. And the other one, if you have a timber resource on your fire line, is the snag hazard, which is of course becoming increasingly difficult as time goes on. So the evacuation time, same thing, green's good, that's an hour or less. Yellow, going to yellow to brown, that's more and more time. So it's good to know what you're looking at for evacuation time off the line. Same thing with the snag hazard, reds, a lot of snags. Blue is basically no snags, and in that particular one, that's the Decker fire that I mentioned. That's timberline. So just a kind of a quick presentation to you of the things that I think that I know are helpful when you have a fire. Then next slide, please, just real quick. We were, for years, 3 years we've been operating, we were pretty ad hoc. You just had to know. We made presentations to regional foresters and other leaders in all agencies, and so they would just kind of know about it and would call when they felt like we could be helpful. As time went along, more and more people knew about this and wanted help. And so this year we've gone to, and it's not even published yet, but there soon will be the capability of going to what looks like a dashboard, and you'll be able to order off of that. So that is coming soon and will be available. So it'll be a desktop dashboard type thing. Last slide, please. And of course, all of this informs risk-informed decision making. So you take, as an agency administrator, you take all of this and you will do some sort of trade-off analysis, either in your head, which is what most of us have done our whole careers, or we offer a way of actually putting this on paper. It's very useful. to determine the course of action that you're going to take on the fire at any point in time. So I'll end with a couple things. One is if you call us and ask for assistance or go on this dashboard, pretty much if you're in the interior west or if you're west of the Mississippi River, I'll just say we have pretty full coverage. If you're back east or, you know, maybe in an unusual place in the west, we'll be able to tell you we don't have full coverage everywhere, but we can usually provide some sort of assistance to you. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, since there's 551 of you and this thing has grown kind of pretty fast over the year, and this year we expect it to grow more, and I just talked to 551 of you. If you've got a really good analyst, a GIS specialist, that sort of thing, who would be interested in this or maybe doesn't even know they might be interested in this, I would ask, because of how we've grown and the request for our assistance has grown over the years, what our shortage is as analysts. So if you get a hold of us and you've got a good GIS specialist or analyst, L10 type on your forest or fuels planner, that sort of person, get a hold of us. We will be happy to teach them some of this stuff and plug them in because we need their help. So with that, I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Dan. Our next speaker is Morgan Pence. Morgan is a fire management specialist with the Wildland Fire Management RD&A and a business lead for WEDSS. Thanks for being here, Morgan.
Hello, everyone. I have a few WEDSS preseason refresher topics to cover to get you set up for success. And we'll briefly talk through the status of WEDSS operations and maintenance. Next slide. Next slide. First off, plan to get your WEDSS account ready before fire season. WEDSS, if you don't know, is the online decision support system that you will use to inform, develop, and document your incident decision making. Displayed here is a login for WEDSS production. There is also a training site with the same features, but it has an orange heading at the top to help you differentiate the two, whereas production is blue. If you are a new line officer and you don't already have an account, set one up today. Navigate to the login page and click Request New Account. If you already have an account, make sure your password is current. Passwords in WEDSS must be changed every 60 days. If you fail to keep your password up to date, your account becomes locked and you must contact the IIA help desk to get a password reset. If you have not logged into your account in 270 days, then your account becomes disabled. And then you have to contact a geographic area editor to first have your user roles reassigned, and then you contact the help desk to get a password reset. If you do not know who your geographic area editor is, the help desk can direct you to the proper contact. Next slide. Once you've got your access squared away, make sure that your WEDSS account and contact information is current. To check, navigate to the My Home tab and then click Contact Information. Your contact information should include phone numbers where you can be reached, especially during fire season. And for service employees, please remember to update your WEDSS email to your USDA email. There is also an option to select your cell phone carrier to generate an alternative address for alerts. If you do this, your cell will receive text messages alerting you of your decision statuses. It's a helpful feature and it can be turned on or off easily. On this page, you may also update your email address, geographic area, agency, and unit. You only need one WEDSS account for your career, as it's designed to follow you as you change jobs or move between agencies. So if you're changing positions or changing agencies, do not create a new account. Just update the information on this screen to reflect your new agency. We can't stress enough how important it is to keep your email current on the contact page. Alerts for password changes and decision approvals will come to this email. So if your email has changed, it must be updated here. Next slide. Next, identify the individuals who will serve as your primary WFDSS support roles. The two we'll focus on here are your unit's WFDSS data manager and your agency's geographic area editor. Your unit's WFDSS data manager has special privileges to preload fire management direction for your unit's land and resource management plan to WFDSS in the form of strategic objectives and management requirements. The geographic area editors are regional resources who assign user roles to individuals within their agency and geographic area. They also essentially own incidents within the geographic area, and they have the technical and policy expertise to assist you. They also manage fire behavior requests and can help get you analytical support you need. Next slide. So how do you determine who these individuals are? You can use the WFDSS address book filters. What I'm showing on the screen here is after you log into WFDSS, you navigate to My Home, then Address Book. And then you can use the filters to narrow down the roles, the geographic area, and the agencies. In this example, I have filtered for data managers in the Southwest geographic area for the Forest Service. And then you can use the unit designators to determine which unit each person is from. Next slide. Now that you've identified your unit's WFDSS data manager, contact that individual and request a WFDSS walkthrough to acquaint yourself with what's been loaded for your unit. You will understand how your unit's land management direction is spatially represented in WFDSS and learn if any unit-specific data has been loaded that might be useful during an incident. Next slide. And finally, as part of your pre-season work practice, the WFDSS training site is set up exactly like production, and it's made to be used for practicing. Next slide. Now I'll briefly talk about the status of WFDSS operations and maintenance. The RD&A and FAMIT has started work building a new WFDSS, which is currently being referred to as Next Gen WFDSS. As such, no new features or enhancements will be added to WFDSS, the current WFDSS, under the operations and maintenance contract, as enhancement, energy, and efforts will occur in the Next Gen WFDSS. WFDSS operations and maintenance work includes making required infrastructure upgrades, accommodating mandatory IT security requirements, and fixing high priority bugs within the application. From the home page, you can select what's new in WFDSS on the left-hand side, and that will take you to release notes for our recent releases, which describe the infrastructure changes and bug fixes that we are making. Back to you, Diane.
Thank you, Morgan. Our next speaker is Tammy Parkinson. Tammy works as a liaison with the National Line Officer Team and is a fire application specialist with the Wildland Fire Management RD&A. Go for it, Tammy.
Thank you, Diane. This summer, help is available for you if you need it. There's a fire behavior analysis support tab button that's highlighted there to the right. Click the fire behavior request link and it'll go to the link in WFDSS, and the geographical area editors are monitoring these requests and will route your request to an available analyst, usually within their region. If you don't receive timely response to your request, or you need additional decision support, call the National Fire Decision Support Center at the number posted at the top of WFDSS login page or on the home page. The Wildland Fire Management RD&A provides staff for the NFDSB, and these analysts are available year-round to provide modeling and decision support. The RMA that Dan presented on, you can click on. We're updating this website at this time. You can click on the RMA link at the top banner. We're in the process of updating this, and you'll be able to request RMA assistance through this site, and it'll go to Robin Cole and Dana Carter. For agency administrator support or to inquire about getting an agency administrator trainee assignment, navigate to the Wildland Fire Management RD&A page and click on the Agency Administrator Toolbox link. The RD&A website is hosting site for Agency Administrator Toolbox and highlights a couple of links. The resources provides information regarding the certification program, task book guidance, frequently asked questions, and AA's continuing education document and the AA desk reference guide. Next slide, please. A recording of our webinar will be hosted on the RD&A website. on the Agency Administrator WFDSS Refresher Training link. If you are looking for additional refresher content, all of the previous webinars are hosted on this location. It'll take some time to prepare for posting, so it won't be available immediately. Let's get to questions.
Okay, we'll move to questions and discussion. We do not have a lot of time left, so please enter your questions into the question panel, and if what ones we don't get to, we will make sure that you get an answer back by an email. We already have a few queued up, so please keep sending them as you have them. First question, has the NMAC reviewed scenarios of turned down assignments due to COVID-19?
Joe?
Well, I don't have the answer to that. I'm not working on NMAC. I'm working with them. Is Beth still on? We'll have to get back to that one.
Okay, looks like Beth did have to leave. Okay, next question. Medical support of incidents will likely be greatly diminished if not completely unavailable for pre-positioning. What kind of contingencies should we be considering?
Could you repeat that?
Yep. Medical support of incidents will likely be greatly diminished if not completely unavailable for pre-positioning. What kind of contingencies should we be considering?
Oh, that's a tough question. There are BMPs, best management practices, in there to cover some of the medical stuff. And that's still an ongoing topic that's being discussed with the Emergency Medical Committee and also the Enterprise Risk Management group. So I don't have a real strong answer for you right now. So I will get back on some of those things if you'll allow that.
Right, and I might chime in. This is Jane, and Joe's right. As far as having a clear-cut plan for you right now, we don't. It is a question that we've got a number of folks working on within our Enterprise Risk Management Assistance group, and in support of Joe and Beth's work in the interagency community. We are exploring both for medical support and a lot of the other logistical pieces that were mentioned earlier, some recommendations. And so in the next couple of weeks, I think we're going to see some more focus come in and around that. And I know that's not very satisfying because I know in parts of the country we've got active fire going on right now. So we really need folks in those situations, as you're innovating in the moment, to be sharing that information into the broader community so that we can learn from some of these places where we're working with things right now. And again, I'd say this is a great opportunity with your partners around the sand table type exercises, really exploring what does that mean for you in the local area, and with your public health officials, what are some of the ideas that they might have helping with this as well. So more to come, stay tuned with it. Lots of folks working on it, but real recipe for it right now, I'm afraid we don't have that to offer, but we'll keep you posted.
Okay, we are about 1 minute away from the top of the hour. We do have more questions coming in, but we are going to need to cut these off. We keep them coming in while we'll keep the webinar rolling to get your questions. We have the person who's asked it and their question, and we'll make sure these get to the people that have the ability to answer them.
Thank you, Morgan. Well, Tammy Morgan, thanks for moderating the question. You can visit the Wildland Fire Management RD&A homepage to access the agency administrator and decision support toolboxes. There is a host of other helpful reference information as well that supports wildland fire managers, analysts, and those supporting units and geographic areas with WFDSS related tasks. Thanks for attending, everyone. Have a great day.